Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Les Binet. He is the most definitive, or should I say most effective voice in the world of effectiveness. So, I mean, as you all know, that effectiveness is today possibly the biggest conversation that's going around in the world, because every single marketing dollar that is being spent, people are asking this question, investors are asking this question, CEOs are asking this question on what is the effective use of that dollar, and Les has a huge body of work around that area. So today we'll try and talk about some of the basic principles and tenets that he has been observing and seeing from working across multiple brands in multiple countries, in multiple geographies. So
yes.
let's thank you for all your time.
Thank you very much. I mean, I work for adam&eveDDB, which is the London office of the DDB network, and my rather fanciful title is Group Head of Effectiveness. So I basically I do three things. I help advertisers to measure the effectiveness of their advertising and marketing communications, and then I try and identify what the ingredients of effective work are, and then I try and use all that to help them improve their effectiveness. And when I talk about effectiveness, I mean effectiveness in hard business terms, you know, dollars, basically, what drives revenue and profit. And I kind of do that on a day-to-day basis, but I also, I have the freedom to do some, if you like, kind of semi-academic work on behalf of the advertising industry as a whole. So together with my colleague, Peter Field, I've built up quite a body of knowledge. And I suspect that's probably what you're going to tap into today.
Absolutely, Les. This is precisely what we are planning to tap into today, so that audience in our market, and maybe since on our platform, it would be possibly across the globe, get a sense of what are the tenets of effectiveness and what are the learnings that you have over the period of time. So what exactly are we measuring as marketing success? Are we measuring parameters which are good parameters for the tech platform? Or are we measuring parameters which are good for my brand? Let me just rephrase the thing. So are we kind of confusing effectiveness with efficiency?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start with that second question, because that's a really important one. Effectiveness versus efficiency. Because I think many people who work in marketing and marketing technology don't understand the difference. And really, so this actually points to another knowledge gap, which is about the finances of marketing. Effectiveness is basically the size of the result that you achieve, how much you move the dial, whatever that dial is. And efficiency is the ratio of effectiveness to effort, the degree to which, how much you have to spend in order to achieve your effectiveness. So, for example, I think the ultimate measure of effectiveness is the net present value of the profit stream that you generate. So it's shareholder value ultimately. But you can think about it as the absolute size of the profits that you generate. Efficiency is the ratio of that profit to the spend. So that's ROI. So ROI is an efficiency measure. Profit is an effectiveness measure. Now, I think there's a lazy assumption amongst many people that the two are interchangeable. If you increase ROI, you'll make more money. But in fact, in marketing, that's usually not true. It's usually the opposite. So in most areas of marketing, you get diminishing returns. So as you increase the spend, effectiveness rises, but ROI goes down. This is a basic bit of finance that I think most MarTech people just have never even thought about. If you just say, okay, we're going to maximize ROI, usually the easiest way to achieve it is to spend less. As you cut your budget, your ROI will naturally rise. And your effectiveness will go down, your sales will go down, your profits will go down. So ultimately, the ROI is maximized usually at zero spend. So the way to maximize the efficiency and the ROI from your marketing is not to do any marketing. You know, ultimately, the most efficient business is a business with zero sales, zero profit, zero staff, etc., etc. That's really efficient, because anything divided by zero is infinity. So maximizing efficiency is generally it's a secondary aim. Now, in some areas of business, effectiveness and efficiency go together. So in a business where you get economies of scale, as effectiveness goes up, efficiency goes up. So you get increasing returns. But in marketing, in most areas of marketing, you get diminishing returns, not increasing returns. So focusing on ROI in marketing is very dangerous. Focusing on ROI, say return on capital employed, in a business where you get economies of scale, when you're building factories and things, is a good thing to do. But in marketing, it's dangerous. So I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there. An obsession with efficiency and ROI is really dangerous in marketing, and people in marketing technology have kind of sold themselves on that basis to a large degree. They go, listen, with digital technology, we can be much more efficient than your old legacy media. We can pinpoint people with, we can target people with pinpoint accuracy. You don't have to spend so much, etc., etc., etc. Great, highly efficient ROI, narrow targeting, small audiences, small spend, small effects, small profits.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the second part of your question. And then that leads into the first part of the question, which is, I believe that ultimately effectiveness for a commercial, profit-making business has to be about shareholder value. In the technical sense of shareholder value being the net present value of the stream of incremental profit that you generate from an activity. So look at how much extra profit is generated by your advertising or marketing communications. Look at how that flows over time, and look at the net present value of that, taking into account the time value of money. That's the primary measure of effectiveness. And then the primary measure of efficiency is the ROI. So shareholder value generated divided by spend. Now, you might think, maybe be slightly surprised that I'm saying it's all about profit and ROI, and then obviously behind that sales. But I think that is the fundamental for a commercial business. But it's important to think that it's about ROI and shareholder value over the longer term, not just right now. So you have to measure all the effects of marketing, not just immediate direct effects, but indirect effects, longer term effects, which can last years. And you also have to measure not just effects on volume, but on prices and margins. So this is where we get into measurement. We know that the effects of great marketing don't just last, a second, a day, a week. They last years, easily 2 to 3 years. In some cases, we know all of us can think of great advertising campaigns from our childhood. There are things that last a lifetime. As somebody once said, the man who buys an Aston Martin at 60 probably began that customer journey at 5 years old when they saw Goldfinger for the first time. That's marketing effects work over a long time. And they don't just drive volume, they also support higher prices. People will pay more for strong brands. If you want a brilliant example, think about analgesics. Something like, so I don't know whether you have it in India, you probably do, Nurofen, which is a brand of ibuprofen. It's chemically identical to generic ibuprofen, but it sells at, I don't know, double or triple the price. It's exactly the same product, but because it's a strong brand, people will pay a lot more for it. one of the big things that brands do, possibly the most profitable things that brands do, is to support higher prices, not higher volumes. And one of the problems with digital measurement systems is typically they are very short term. So when I talk to digital marketers and I talk about measuring effects over months and years, they go, well, how's that possible? You know, digital data only goes back a week, you know. Cookies are deleted on average every 7 days. So how could you possibly measure that, you know? So clearly they have no ability to measure these long-term effects, which is where most of the payback comes.
Just to butt in here for a minute. So which means what they're ending up measuring is an internal measurement and not a measurement which is market facing, right? Exactly.
Yes. It's like that old joke about the drunk and the lamppost. You know, a policeman sees a drunk looking under a lamppost for his keys, and he says, you know, where did you drop them? And he said, over there, pointing out into the dark. He said, well, why are you looking for them here? And he said, well, the light's better.
Light is here.
You know? And digital marketers measure what they can measure. They allow the technology to determine what they measure rather than what actually matters financially. Again, I'm going to be talking about this in Cannes next week. Typically, digital attribution systems will overestimate the short-term direct effects of marketing, probably by a factor of 2, and underestimate the longer-term effects of brand building by a factor of maybe about 7. So it gives you completely misleading steer. And then the whole thing is self-reinforcing, because then they only measure the effects of short-term direct digital activity.
Eventually, what you can measure is what gets done. So then they forget. So
exactly. I remember years ago someone saying, "What you measure is what you do," so the whole thing becomes a vicious circle where they only do short-term digital measurements, so they only do short-term digital activity.
In fact, this is so refreshing, Les, to hear about profitability, shareholder value, long-term profit, because I remember as a strategist, one of the best briefs I've ever worked on was on a brand strategy where the output was defined by the owner as a change in the PE ratio.
Yeah.
I will consider your brand strategy successful if my PE ratio changes. I thought that was the best brief I've ever got on brand, because that is the true power of brand management.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. That's how, ultimately, that's how marketers should think at the top level. But what you then have to do is go, what are the components of the PE ratio? What influences them? And then that goes down to sort of streams of profit, and also creating options to enter new markets which have a financial value in themselves, changing margins, etc. And then you filter down to sort of sales volumes and prices, and then you get down to penetration and loyalty and so on, and eventually you get down to more familiar marketing metrics.
I completely understood the point of the person who was giving the brief, saying 2 companies doing exactly same kind of turnover, producing same kind of products, playing in the same market, and one have a P ratio of X and another have a P ratio of 4x or 5x. Why?
Oh, yeah.
There, I think the role of the brand is very, very clear.
That's great. I mean, I have to say, I don't think I've ever had a client give me a brief as good as that. But ultimately, that kind of thinking should lie behind the briefs we get. And I think we sometimes do ourselves. Sorry.
So you're saying that is the true measure of effectiveness. Eventually, it should lead to something which is long-term, sustainable, and adds to shareholder wealth, shareholder value, brand wealth, the health of the company, the financial health of the company.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are some slight pitfalls with that PE ratio metric in itself. For example, it could lead to a marketing campaign which was basically there just to inflate the share price artificially, with fake news, for example, which so it might not be a sustainable PE ratio. Anyway, but I think we sometimes do ourselves a disservice in the advertising industry in particular by constantly talking about fluffier metrics like brand awareness and brand image as if they're an end in themselves. They're not. They're a means to an end, and that end is financial. So what I try to do a lot in my job is to make the link between these more touchy-feely metrics and hard financial value. I care about hard financial value, but my research suggests that things like emotions, feelings, associations have immense financial value. And so that's the link, but they're not ends to themselves. You know, we don't make great creative ads just because we love making them, although we do. We don't move people to tears just because we want to move people to tears. Ultimately, we're doing this because it's going to, you know, mean more profit for businesses. And hopefully also it creates value for consumers. I mean, this is something that I don't normally talk about a lot because mostly I pose as advertising's Dr. Evil. But I mean, if going back to that Nurofen example, medical research shows that branded analgesics actually are better at curing headaches because of the stronger placebo effect. So actually, when people are paying more for Nurofen, they are actually getting more for their money because they will feel better. And in many areas of life, building strong brands also does things for the end user as well, particularly in areas like fashion, for example, stuff like that.
When we come to, you know, kind of conceptually explain the idea of effectiveness and efficiency and not get into matrices, which, you know, and in a slightly sort of apex level meeting, many times matrices are not always discussed. So I was once asked to come up with something, and I had told, I mean, not thinking much, but later on I stuck to it, which is possibly efficiency is doing the things in the right way, and effectiveness is doing the right thing. So,
yes, to some extent, yes.
So in that case, what you define as the right thing is very critical, because what you're saying is that the right thing is creating long-term sustainable shareholder value, or
yes,
creating a brand health which allows the brand to invest in the brand further. And so this is possibly the right thing. But
yes,
I think we get so stuck with doing it the right way, then we are looking at very smaller, you know, like matrices, and trying to see that if you have done it well.
In his book, you know, the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or whatever it's called, and I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote it, but in that book he talks about jumping off the treadmill of efficiency. He says, you know, people who are really successful in life don't spend all their time trying to do things more and more efficiently. They focus on trying to do the right things, and one can get into this in your own life where you go, oh, well, I need to go from doing 10 things today to 20 things today, when in fact actually we'd be better off going, I need to do 3 things really well, you know. And I think businesses quite often are in this world. In fact, I can think of a client that I've been working with only this morning, you know, where it feels to me that business is trying to do more and more stuff which is irrelevant and do it faster, and as a result then they don't even have time to do the big important things that matter. Anyway, but yeah, so the first thing is to focus on doing the right things, and then secondarily try to do them well and try to do them better.